MacVoices is supported by Notion. Work faster, write better, think bigger with Notion. Learn more at notion.com/MacVoices. I want to circle back to the Apple Vision Pro for a second. Are any of you familiar with Amber Mac?
Yes. Amber MacArthur.
Okay, yes. Okay, good. So Amber Mac has been around the news scene for quite a while. I've been sort of a fan of hers because I just really like her. She's very no nonsense when it comes to interviews. Her content usually is reasonably dense, not a lot of fluff. She has a new podcast that is basically a podcast of her new Canadian radio show about tech and tech-related things. So I'm telling you all this just as a prelude to giving you the link, because a recent episode of the show, she and a guest were talking about the Apple Vision Pro, and they said something I really don't think I've heard either before or at least not recently. They were looking at the Apple Vision Pro as a wearable. And I don't think of the Apple Vision Pro as a wearable. And I wanted everybody here to tell me, is it a wearable? Is it not a wearable? Because I tend to think of a wearable as something I can hang on my body one way or another and still go about my normal life. And I don't think of the Apple Vision Pro as that. But I also don't own one.
Face.
Yeah, but are you going to walk around during your normal life utilizing that?
Well, no, I've got curly hair.
You could, though.
They have the little clip on the battery now, so you can clip it to your pocket so it doesn't fall out.
I'm okay calling it a wearable. It's just not a wearable in the sense that we have become familiar with.
Yeah, I think of the first iPhones, or not iPhones, excuse me, portable phones or cellular phones. They were huge. They were bricks. And, this is just the beginning of that evolution. I think it's a wearable. Do I walk around the house with it on? Yeah. Would I walk down the street with it on? No. But yeah, it's a wearable.
If I stood on Main Street with it, yeah. Did I go to a coffee shop, put it on, and get a bunch of work done? Uh-huh. Do I occasionally wander through the woods and take pictures of things? Yeah.
Was I on a plane with it and, watched a movie or did some work? Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to help with turbulence.
Okay. Except for the wandering through the woods, I've done all those things with the MacBook.
Yeah.
If we're to assume that, assuming this doesn't go bust entirely, eventually they would like to work themselves towards something more like the glasses that rest upon my face, wouldn't it be weird for them to be in different categories?
Listen, please don't misunderstand. I was asking the question because although I think all three of our Apple Vision Pro owners have said that they put it on and walk around the house. So maybe I just have a different vision for how I would use it or what I would do with it. And I don't have one. So it's not really fair, but it just really surprised me and I think, Marty, you were the one that said, or maybe it was Britt, that if you do get it down to a pair of glasses or something like that, yeah, then it would pretty obviously be a wearable. I just don't think of it that way right now, but I think I've been outvoted here.
I think it would be a different wearable and it would be a different product because I don't think you'll ever be able to do the heavy computing that you can do on the current version of Vision Pro. Glasses might be notifications, things that pop up on the screen, the kinds of things that Google Glass used to be. But I don't think you'll ever get the computing power of creating things like you can instead of consuming things, which is what you did with Google Glass, creating things with the Vision that you would get on a glasses version of Vision.
Well, I mean, Vision Pro ultimately is supposed to be a standalone computing device like a Mac is. It's a new platform for computing. And this one happens to be much more wearable than a MacBook Pro.
But when I do the MacBook Pro like a tent on my head, it does look great.
Yes, it does.
Brian and then Webb. Brian?
Oh, sure. Oh, it was funny when you mentioned, the definition and thinking about what is and what isn't a wearable. So I just did a quick search, what is the definition of wearable? And I found an Investopedia article, and the very front image that they have on it is a person wearing VR glasses and holding controllers. So, I was just taking the time now just to read through it, but it does mention it includes Google Glass and things of that nature too, in addition to fitness trackers, and they even go into all sorts of things, like things that I didn't even know existed. So kind of neat.
Yeah. Webb?
I'm kind of with you. I don't view the Apple Vision Pro, which I do not own, as a true wearable. I think it's just another unique platform. I don't view it the same as the Apple Watch or the AirPods, which I kind of view those as more of a wearable. And like I said, just Apple Vision Pro is just a different platform in my mind. I think you were kind of saying the same thing, Chuck, but that's just how I view it. And I've been on here for an hour and I haven't said word once, so I figured I better say something before you kick me out of here. So.
I was wondering if you were breathing, but
Webb, you're the only one that still looked intelligent.
Boy, have I got you guys fooled.
Eric, last word on this.
Yeah, so I would say if you're not isolated from the rest of the world while you're using the device, it's a wearable. And the Apple Vision Pro, you can somewhat isolate yourself from the rest of the world and immerse yourself in a movie or in an environment. And then it's not really a wearable. You really should not be getting up and wandering around. It's painful. If, however, you just have a window floating and you can see things around and through and whatnot, it's a wearable.
Okay, so we've concluded that it is a wearable. Brittany, I know you've got to cut out. I'm so glad to have you back. It's a delight. Please come back anytime you can arrange to do so. I know it's not easy with your schedule, but we love having you. Where can folks connect with you?
You can find me many places with ADD Liberator, but the website's a pretty good default, which is conquer.consulting if you're looking for the stuff that I get up to usually.
Great. Come back. Bring your friends. Anytime.
All right.
Anytime.
I'll do it.
All
See
right.
you later.
Take care.
Good night.
Good night. Today's Mac Voices is supported by Notion. Work faster, write better, think bigger with Notion. Learn more at notion.com/MacVoices. I recently got a look inside another company's operational structure. My first thought was, oh boy, they could sure use Notion. Competing systems, competing apps, competing procedures, information compartmentalized. It was like something from 20 years ago, which it probably was. If only I could get them to pay attention to Notion. The fully integrated Notion AI helps you work faster, write better, and think bigger, doing tasks that would normally take you hours in just seconds. If I could get them to listen, they would think they stepped into the future, which they would have. Maybe I'll bring up the fact that over half of the Fortune 500 companies use Notion, so they send less email, cancel more meetings, and reduce spending on their tools. I'm going to tell them what I'm going to tell you. Try Notion for free when you go to notion.com/MacVoices. That's all lowercase letters, notion.com/MacVoices, to try the powerful, easy-to-use Notion AI today. And when you use my link, you're supporting Mac Voices. Notion.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Notion for supporting Mac Voices. Okay, so the next one, I personally have some mixed feelings on. This is that Sonos has canceled their TV streaming box. And I feel like this is a good thing. In some ways, I'm disappointed in it, but I also think it's smart that they're not going to try to take on such well-established things as the Apple TV Plus, Google's Chromecast, et cetera, Amazon's Fire Stick or Fire devices. I do want to say though, Tom Conrad, who's right now the interim CEO, was a guest on MacVoices, but he was in a prior life because at the time he was CTO of Pandora, and this goes way back. So, but I have to tell you, my impression of him, because he was an ex-Apple employee, my impression of him, he was a good guy. He's a really straight shooter. He's been placed in a very challenging position given some of Sonos's decisions. And so I got to believe that someone like that is trying to make and is making the best decisions for the company. Mark, I know you had some strong feelings about this one.
Yes, and I need to go probably after this story. I looked at it, and we've talked about the self-inflicted wounds the ex-Sonos CEO made last year. And then I think we talked about when this new guy came in or was appointed interim, they're losing money. And I think that this could have easily been retitled, so stopping competing with Apple, that is clickbait worthy. You could easily said they're not going to compete with Roku or with Amazon Fire Stick, which both of you mentioned in your introducing the article. So I think they're just rationalizing the product line and hopefully freeing up resources so that they can double down on making what their core products are better and improve some of the self-inflicted injuries that they made last year. Other than that, let's stay tuned and see what comes out as new from Sonos as 2025 unfolds.
I guess the reason I said I have mixed feelings is I think Tom is making some good decisions, or Sonos under Tom is making a good decision not to do this. But we've talked here a long time ago on the show about we'd love to see the Apple TV morph into something along the lines of a sound bar that could address not just the video, but also superior audio. And Sonos certainly would be in a position to do the latter part of that, and then just build a streaming box in. So it sort of made sense. This was a product I felt like they at least had one leg up on. And that's why I was sorry to see that maybe it wasn't going to happen. And our discussions in the chat room are, was it ever officially announced? I don't think so. And Jeff, I think you said you don't think so either, but it was certainly talked about a lot. So,
but never by Sonos, right?
I won't swear to that, Jim. I don't know. I
always find these stories that Company X has canceled product Y that they never announced, never talked about. It's like, really? Can't they do something like that in peace?
Well, Apple sure can't, and with all the leakers now, everybody knows what everybody else is working on. It seems it's all but impossible to keep a secret. Brian?
Well, yeah, I was just going to comment that if this was a product that was going to come out, I'm personally a little disappointed to see that it's not, because with recently, Sonos has had some hiccups, a lot of issues that have been going on, but it's otherwise known as a pretty high quality company. And, just from a competition and feature standpoint, I think it would be nice to, have another high quality company come out with a box, that does streaming and, has a business model that maybe isn't looking to sell your data and all that kind of stuff that maybe some of the competitors are more apt to do.
But Brian, if I could follow up, I think it's probably less of a challenge engineering a box and more of a business and relationship challenge to get content for it. I suspect, that's why this unannounced product is probably being terminated.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
What could they do with this box that would differentiate them from Roku? And my guess is that this is a question that, assuming this product actually was in development, that's a question that came up internally. Because the way I see it, that's probably the real competition for a product like this from Sonos, and not Apple. And when you look at a Roku, that's the box that has all the different services from all the different companies, and that's the go-to that you think of when you're looking at a device like that. Even though we do have Google and Amazon products out there as well, but it's how are you going to compete with Roku? And sure, you could say yes, but we have tight integration with our entire Sonos ecosystem. Okay, sure, but you can plug a Sonos into a Roku television thing, and you still have your Sonos sound system with the far less expensive Roku product.
And to point out, Roku has never made a profit, and they're not even expected to make a profit this year. So, whereas Sonos was once a profitable company. So there's all these reasons that it indicates it's just a bad idea. Who knows when it got started? Maybe it's the prepare 3 envelopes and blame it, all the trouble on the old guy. And, so we'll have to see what happens as they right themselves. But I think the streaming video space seems to be consolidating a little bit on the provider side, and on the device side, I don't know what's going on with Amazon and Fire Stick, and so I imagine Google's probably making a profit, through their YouTube Premium services, but that's just a guess. And we know Disney seems like they're maybe turning the corner, and they're not making a box, so I think things are getting squeezed out, and I don't think there's a lot of room for. I think it's basically Apple, Fire Stick, the Google device if it's still in the market, and Roku. Webb, what do you think?
First of all, I agree with everything you said. Sonos has so much other stuff going on. They don't need this distraction of having another new product and not having it succeed. But I remember in 2007, late 2006, that there was this company that was getting ready to introduce a new cell phone. And I couldn't understand why this company was going to be introducing this new cell phone with all the other cell phone manufacturers that were out there. And we know who that is that introduced that. And if Sonos was going to have something that they were going to introduce that was somewhat innovative, that no one else had seen, there's a risk to that, of course, but I could see why they would want to get into it. But I do agree with you that it is a very crowded space, and I don't know what they were going to provide. Apple, on the Apple TV, they also had their own content too that they're really big on, and that was kind of the second part of the Apple TV question. But when Apple got into the iPhone business, I sat there and said, why do you want to do it? And how many times have I said on this show, I've been wrong so many times before, it's not even worth counting. And I think we all know the success of the iPhone. So anyway, that's my comment.
Well, real good points. And Jeff, listen, I'm speculating too, but I guess the reason I was so excited is that in my living room is a Sonos soundbar and and 2 rear speakers that don't require any connectivity other than just the rears have to be plugged in. Obviously, so does the soundbar. But sometimes you got to jump through a few hoops to connect it to the TV and to your streaming box and make sure that everything is getting out the way it should. And my thought was that this could be their secret sauce. That if they could just say, we've got one connection into your screen, and that's it, and we handle all the audio, that would simplify things a lot. Because every time I've gone to set up any kind of audio and video system, it is still a hassle if you want to go to a 5.1 or a 7.1. So that's what I was sort of anticipating, hoping for, thinking. That doesn't mean it's right.
That would be cool.
But Apple could do that same thing.
Because they are. It's the home hub that we're waiting for.
If that, yeah, that may be, because your yes, the HomePod minis would be a perfectly reasonable set of surround speakers.
That's what I'm using.
You know what Sonos could do, Chuck, to address your need and not have to try to compete with the other streaming boxes that are out there. And side note, yes, Apple has their own original content to go along with their box. Amazon has their own original content. Google has their own original content. That's one thing Sonos presumably wouldn't have. But what they could do is create, I'll call it the Sonos Rosetta, in honor of the Rosetta Stone, where it's the hub that you plug your television, your streaming device, and your Sonos stuff into, and it intelligently manages everything that's coming in from the streaming box, sending it to the television and out to the audio without you having to worry about anything. And if you're not using a streaming box, you're using a smart TV instead, well, no problem, because everything's still plugged in right through the Sonos, and there you go. So it becomes your all-in-one, just plug everything in, and it'll just work for your home entertainment system and keeps you in the Sonos ecosystem.
Jeff, I mean, look, we're both designing products here that don't exist and probably aren't going to exist. But yeah, that's another version of it. That's another version of it. It still can be, if you want to really upgrade your sound and your screens and have them work together, it's still not as seamless as an experience as it could be. And at the moment, it seems like nobody's really trying to hit that market. And I still can't figure out why, as popular as home theater is. Everybody has their flavor.
With Harmony.
Yeah,
they did such a great job of taking that incredibly complex process of getting all the crap to work the way you want it to for the thing you want to do at the time. Want to watch a movie? Streaming? You want to watch a Blu-ray? Okay. You want to play a video game? And what is it? 5 remotes? Yeah. And you probably have to get up and push buttons on something over by the TV anyhow. And Harmony fixed all that. And then Logitech bought them, and eventually it was like, yeah, that's it. And we haven't had any product come along yet that I feel really replaces the Harmony. So does that mean there is no market for that? Or does it mean no one has actually picked up the mantle to run with that concept?
I would think the latter. The one change that we're off on a tangent here, folks. Sorry about that. I think the one thing that's changed in that time period, though, is that most of us have a lot fewer devices. We don't have a DVD player or a Blu-ray player. We don't have a VCR. You don't have some of those things because so much of what the modern family or the modern person consumes is through streaming. Some of us
with a smart TV as opposed to using their Fire Stick or their Apple TV.
Yep. I mean, probably at least a few of us here have Plex servers, but that's because we're us. I doubt that many homes have Plex servers. So, Mark, I know you got to go, and thank you for sticking around. It's always a pleasure. Where can folks connect with you?
LinkedIn or X at Mark Fuccio, MarkFuccio.
Great. Thanks so much for making the time tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for the invitation, and rest of the panel. It was a great conversation. Look forward to hopefully seeing you all next week.
Sounds good. Take care.
Yeah, good night.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.